Welcome to Super Movie Brothers. Let's start the show.
This is a podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
Vaya con Dios.
The ultimate rush. There's nothing that comes close to it. Not even sex.
Not tragic to die doing what you love. If you want the ultimate, you gotta be willing to pay the ultimate price.
You're trying to tell me the FBI is going to pay me to learn to surf?
Fear causes hesitation. Hesitation will cause your worst fears to come true.
Babes.
Big one.
The correct term is babes, sir.
100% pure adrenaline. Does either one of you have anything even remotely interesting to tell me?
Caught my first tube this morning, sir.
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers, episode 147. I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Dave.
I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Jay.
Super Movie Brother Jay.
Jay. Yeah. What's up, brah?
And for the first
Got my bros here with me.
for the first time in 47 episodes, we have Rob. Rob, how you been?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
You don't have a show anymore.
No, I'm in Jay's category now.
Yeah. Begrudging co-host. And then, of course, we are joined by Cult Movie Mark.
Yes, the bros are all back together.
The bros are all here.
The crew's here, man.
We're all here, and we're going to be talking about Point Break.
Yeah,
And flipping our hair.
like that the whole time.
None of us have hair long enough to.
No.
None of us can grow hair long enough.
If only we had Swayze's hair.
If only we had Swayze's hair.
The mullet in the back.
So this is both Rob and Mark's first time back with us in a while. So I thought it'd be nice to take a minute and catch up with everybody. So Mark, what have you been up to, man? In this what? This is almost 5 months. We took off 6 months. We took off.
Yeah, let's
from
put him
seeing
on
you.
the spot, dude.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to
Really
do.
put me on the spot.
Well, I mean, me and Jay did do something with you. We went and saw
Yes.
your short film festival.
You did. Yes, I really appreciate that. Actually, you guys came out.
That was really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. We
Yeah.
just did a night of short films, and I showed my my short that I made a few months ago. And actually, Jay has a little cameo as a voice in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just had a night of a lot of people I knew, some I didn't know, showing their work, and it went over pretty well. You guys seem to enjoy it, so
I did. I enjoyed like a full 2/3 of the films.
well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's
I'll take it.
Other than yours, I think my favorite one was the Princess Vagina.
Oh,
That had me.
Princess Pussy.
Princess
Yes.
Pussy.
Oh, yes.
That
was
had me
good.
cracking. Here, look at me trying to use the proper terminology. Look, trying to be a nice guy and
Scientific.
Yeah, Princess Pussy. But it was fucking hilarious. That one actually like really made me laugh.
No, it was I thought we had a good mix of films. So
Absolutely.
nice variety there.
Absolutely.
Also, did I have a daughter when last time we recorded?
I believe you had.
Maybe she was just born.
I was about to say you had just given birth to her, but then
I
that
just-
that completely diminishes your wife's role in everything that happens. So I don't want to.
I did
You
jack
will
shit.
not be invited over again.
But yes, you do have a daughter,
yes.
and she's what? No, she's 9
Well,
months.
now she's like, she just turned 10 months. So,
10 months. Yeah. So no, you had her when we were recording
she's
before.
been around. She's old news now.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, she's been taking up a lot of time, but it's been great, and she's growing and learning and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Now she has full control of her head. She can lift her head up.
She
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah, that's a
And
milestone.
she's teething now, so it's been just
Oh, that's
great.
awesome. All your shirts are soaked.
Oh yeah, saliva all over the place, screaming all the time. But no, she's really good, and so just been doing the baby thing, and still working on some writing. And I just showed Dave and Rob a comic that I was working
I'm
on that
excited to read
came
it.
out.
Absolutely.
So-
Slightly Altered Man. You guys can
Slightly
find it
Altered Man,
on
yeah.
you guys can find it on Amazon. You can get it for
yeah.
your Kindles, or you can actually order now a printed version of it.
Yes, you can.
Awesome.
And first 2 issues are out. Third one's coming out very soon.
Awesome. Rob, what have you been up to, man?
Well, I took some time off because I gave up my podcast. I used to do the Fan Film Boys.
Yeah, it's dead.
It's dead. Yeah, it just wasn't getting the audience that I was expecting and hoping for, and it was just a lot of work involved in getting it together and getting people on, guests and stuff like that.
Well, yeah,
just
you were
wasn't-
doing the interviews and stuff.
I was doing
which-
the interviews and trying to like just get the interaction from people to try and join in, and it just didn't have the fan base. So I'm still looking out there to possibility of doing another podcast of some sort, but just enjoying some time off. My son's just started playing baseball, so that's been a lot of fun and expensive. But
Sure.
And like I said to you before, are you disappointed that we don't have cricket in the States? Like, does that bother you?
Well, I mean, unless he wants to play with a bunch of Indians, I don't really. There's not really that much choice. But no, it's been a good couple of months. I probably should have came back sooner, but my parents were here for a little bit of it as well, which is good.
All right, yeah, and that's if you wonder what was such a delay in Movie Cocktail, blame Rob.
Yep, that was me. I take full responsibility for that one.
All right, so let's get into Point Break here. So this is the official first episode of Movie Cocktail Season 2, and we put up a poll, and we had this category came from Patreon, as all of our categories this season of Movie Cocktails will do. So all the patrons got together, and they are the ones that chose the categories for us. Now, this one was by Patron Jay, who is the co-host of this show. And
Nepotism.
You could have fooled me. I mean, you could have lied.
Could have made up a name.
could have, but no, this one came from Jay.
Patreon K.
And Jay wanted us to do bank heist movies, specifically bank heist. I remember I was like, "Hey
Right.
man, can we do like
Bank robbery?
like
I was very specific.
casino heist or like diamond heist?" And he's like, "No, has to be a bank heist." And I was like, "All right, fair enough. I guess you'll limit us to half a dozen movies, and we'll just go with that."
There's plenty of them out there.
Yeah. The Italian Job, where everyone gets to drive like little Mini Coopers that made them pop.
Come on, you're going to do the original if you're going to do
Yeah,
the
with
Italian
Michael
Job.
Caine.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
I hope you're not a member of the fire brigade.
That was rated as like the most well-known like line from a movie
Really?
quite a few years ago. Yeah.
What? Member of the fire brigade?
No,
No,
blow the bloody doors off.
That must be in international audiences, not in the United States. All right, so we had 4 movies that were put up for vote. There was a Point Break that was put up by Rob,
Yo.
and we had Heat with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. That came in 3rd place.
Okay.
Third place.
Did pretty well.
And that was
Yeah.
nominated by Mark. And then Jay put up Baby Driver, which came in 2nd place. And I put up Inside Man, which was nowhere near the rest of them. Like, I knew that was a poor pick. However, isn't that the only bank heist in these bits? Like, that's an actual heist.
Well, from start to finish,
It's a
that's
heist.
the whole movie.
Right. The rest of these are all bank robberies.
Right.
Look, I love all the movies are great.
But you were specific, Jay. You
I
said
was.
bank heist, so I take the win technically. No,
I see how season 2 is going to go.
rigged as always. Now, the winner was Point Break, and it goes to Rob. He got 32% of the votes. We got 380 votes on this poll. So, yeah, it's gonna be a great season. We got another one coming up right after this episode. We'll announce our 4 nominations for a category by patron Dave.
Wink, wink.
Now, who's that?
That's me.
Now,
You could have lied again.
we are not the only 2 Patreons.
It's just going to
For
come
our own Patreon,
back and forth. Patron Jay has picked this one.
Now, when I posted it on Patreon, I immediately answered for myself, and I told Jay to jump on and answer. So they were just the first 2 categories that came out. So yeah, we will do 4 films for Terror in the Woods, and Terror in the Woods will be 4 horror films, and I'm doing the rabbit fucking ears as hard as I fucking can. Horror films, because the movie Jay's picked is not a horror film, so no one's gonna vote for it anyway, so it doesn't matter. Let's get into talking about this movie. Point Break came out in 1991. It was produced by James Cameron and directed by Catherine Bigelow, and she went on to do some great films in the early to mid 2000 range, where she had The Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30. She won an Oscar and everything like that. But early in her career, she did Point Break with Keanu Reeves, Gary Busey, and of course, Patrick Swayze. And let us not forget Mr. Blood, Sex, Sugar, Magic himself, Anthony Kiedis.
So my kiss.
Too small of a role.
I know, too small.
Come on. When
But it was worth it, though.
when the camera pans over to him and he does that He does like that lip thing.
So
I was
good.
just like, what? What is this guy doing?
Like they wasted film
my
on that.
kiss.
I could just picture Catherine Bigelow just being like, I just do something you would do on stage.
Do something, chill.
So he pulls his pants down, and she's like, no, not that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Do something else. Do something else.
Takes his sock out. Yeah.
All right, so let's go around. Let's talk about everyone's first experience with this movie. We'll start with Rob, since it was his film and it won. Rob, what was your first experience with this movie? Was watching it this time the first time, your first go around?
No. I'd seen it a long time ago.
Big fan of those Australian scenes in the end, right?
Oh, it's the typical Australian. It's the. I'm surprised as he was walking off the beach.
Oh, it's not mate. I got out on the beach.
I'm surprised he didn't say, "I've got a barbie over here. I'm cooking some shrimp." And then as he's walking away, he goes, "That's really not a knife."
Yeah.
I don't want. I don't want any shrimp. I don't want any shrimp, bro. I'm here for a bounty.
But I remember seeing it when I was young. I loved it because it was an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, between the surfing and the skydiving and the bank robberies in between, it was just and at that stage of my life, I was a big Keanu Reeves fan because obviously Bill and Ted.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to see what he was doing, and it was such a different role to that I was like, oh wow, this guy's really cool.
That's when he started.
And
to
there's
become
been
like an
nothing
action
like this
star.
on screen before
No,
at that
exactly.
time.
Yeah. It's pretty.
I mean, there's a
original.
lot of movies like this sort of thing,
Yeah,
but not
have,
the
like, the
action
mishmash of
adventure
everything,
type,
yeah.
like the characters
Yeah.
just letting loose.
I think
just
that's a
living.
big part of why it became such a cult classic, is because people just had so much fun with it, and you never saw this really that kind of.
I don't know. Have you guys seen Rad?
No.
That's
Actually, I've not seen
the
that.
BMX one.
Yeah.
With,
Rad.
what's her face?
That
Nicole
was
Kidman.
Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also BMX Bandits, guys.
Yep.
Come on.
I remember BMX
There's-
Bandits.
there-
Late 90s?
Oh yeah, but they
Yeah,
went
but no,
skydiving.
Yeah, I think
and
what I'm
robbing
saying is they
banks.
combined a lot of different.
Right. It combined a lot of elements. It combined the buddy cop element that we got
Yeah.
with Lethal Weapon.
Yep.
It combined like that action adventure type thing that you got with movies like Rad, BMX Bandits, stuff like that. It
Also
kind of
bank robbery stuff,
and then it just gave you Patrick Swayze on top of that.
He's
Swayze's
just an
mullet
all-around
and-
cool dude.
Yeah. So it was an awesome movie in 1991, and we'll get into some of the facts about it, like how it did financially and stuff like that. But Jay, what was your first experience with Point Break?
A very long time ago. Is extremely foggy. I just remember it being a fun little movie. I think I probably saw it in grade school sometime, and then I rewatched it about a month ago because I had an inkling that this might win. And it was kind of smart, and I had a good time with it. It is so dated though, and it's funny. It's really beautifully shot in some sequences, and horribly acted in many, Keanu Reeves included, and really just reaffirmed, the star power of Patrick Swayze, because I didn't really grow up in that era so much. So now seeing back on some of these performances of his in his prime, it really just goes to show why he was such a star.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of fun revisiting this movie.
All right, Mark.
For me, this movie is one of those, like one of those movies my dad would rent, those R-rated movies that I would kind of sneak downstairs and take a little peek and see. Like this one, I remember Under Siege 2, Dark Territory,
Yeah.
classic film.
Where he rips out the guy's throat with his bare hands.
Yeah, and the bad guy at the end dies like 3 times. Yeah, it's a crazy movie. But anyway, yeah, so this reminds me of that time when I was younger and, it wasn't really allowed, I guess, to watch movies like this. So, it was like, just reminds me of kind of like that thrill of, watching something like this and seeing the bad words and violence and all that stuff. So I still think it's a fun movie that holds up for sure.
It definitely does. Now, I haven't seen this since probably early high school years. Was probably the last time I saw it. And the way I remembered it was a very cheesy 90s action film. And that's the way I pretty much thought about going into this, where I was like, whatever. It's a fun romp. And I remembered it being like pretty short. It's 122 minutes. It's not short. It's
solid 2 hours.
Yeah, it's a solid 2 hour long film. And I just remember it being kind of like cheesy in a way, but watching it again, there was a lot more to appreciate than I really realized. I think my first go around with it, and I think like you were saying, some of the scenes are like really gorgeous. I really liked the night surfing scene. I thought like that all looked fantastic. All the skydiving stuff was shot extremely well, and I love the foot chase when Keanu Reeves is chasing Bodhi, and Bodhi's in his Ronald Reagan mask, and they're running. That scene
through the houses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really,
There's
really
a lot
well
of great
done.
like handheld camera work and like the bank heist scene or the bank robbery scenes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got sure to get
you
that
had it right the first time. Yeah.
Those scenes are really like visceral and kind of raw, and yeah, it's a really good looking movie for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And when people brought this up I hear about it on a lot of other podcasts and stuff like that. I'm always like, whatever. Like I never think of it as anything that I really wanted to go back to. And now that I was watching it last night and I was really enjoying it, I was like, wow, like this actually is a film from the early 90s that holds up. And I'm not a big 90s action fan. Like I far prefer the 80s action movies over the 90s
Where
action
Dave and I
movies.
differ.
Yeah. But when I went back and watched this, I was like, dude, this is solid. Probably because it's so close to the 80s.
It's pretty early 90s, yeah.
So this film was not incredibly successful in the theaters. It cost around $24 million to make, estimated, and it grossed $43.2 million. So it made its money back and then some, but that's not really considered terribly profitable, which is probably why it never garnered a sequel back in the...
Now, Dave, would you call this a cult film?
That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
I would say this is 100% cult status at
Really
this
came
point.
back, yeah.
Yeah, I think people remember it more fondly now than people who in the 90s, looking in 1995, this film probably wasn't remembered as much as it is in 2019.
And also a newfound respect for it. Like you said, looking back at it, you can actually like see things in it that are, that you're like, this is a good film. It's not just like a cheesy romp,
Yeah, I wonder if things like John Wick being so successful have caused some people to go back and look at other Keanu Reeves movies and
One can only hope.
and really take a look at...
I think so, because this is
Yeah.
a big franchise for him,
it's not a franchise. There's only one, Jay.
Two.
Well,
I'm talking about John Wick.
Oh, John Wick.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a big franchise.
And how that's becoming more and more popular again for
at this
him.
point,
and
Save that one.
At this point, is Point Break the only movie that doesn't have a sequel? I feel like everything else does. I mean,
and the 90s was rife for doing sequels. Like everything that was big did sequels.
but I think that just shows how original the movie was. Is that all these elements that came together? It's like you can't really do that again in a way.
And that's what holds it alone too, is that like some of these movies, they ruined them by making the sequels. The bad guy gets away at the end or something like this, like Bodhi gets away.
But Bad Boys 2 is better than Bad Boys 1.
You ain't seen Bad Boys 2.
Well,
or Speed.
You have the
obviously.
occasional
Speed is
Speed 2 is
Speed 2
terrible.
is
Let's
horrible.
not talk about that.
but like
Interesting you bring up Speed 2, though. It was actually the reason that Keanu Reeves lost like half of his career because he refused to do Speed 2 and Fox blacklisted him for 10 years.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was blacklisted, which is why you saw him go into doing a lot of smaller roles.
So other studios
a lot
might
of,
think that he's like difficult or
like Johnny
whatever.
Mnemonic.
a lot of indie roles.
He made 2 Bill and Ted's though, and another one's coming out soon.
That's true. The
That's
third one
true.
is coming out very
I
soon.
can't
So,
wait for that.
He
but
loves
yeah.
those characters though, so it's still
but so Fox like blacklisted him for a long time.
And they were pretty powerful back then.
Yeah, at this time, yeah, they were pretty powerful.
Did you ever work with Fox again after that?
That I'm unsure.
I don't
of.
think so.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So
I don't think he would ever want to.
Right.
After being shafted
After
for
that,
a
yeah.
decade.
And what's the difference? Now everyone works for the mouse. So
Very true.
Let's all bow down to the mouse.
Yeah.
all right. So I did make a cocktail for this. This being the first movie cocktail. The duties of making the cocktail fell on me. Next time they will fall on Rob. Then they'll fall on Jay. Then they'll fall on Mark. That's how we'll do it. It'll be like a round robin. So in the next category, I got to pick my movie first this time. Rob will get to pick his movie first. Then Jay. Then Mark, and so on, round robin style. But this cocktail I made is called Bodhi's Sunrise. And the way like I was kind of picturing this cocktail was that it was kind of like 1 part whiskey sour, 1 part tequila sunrise, and then like another part of like a Malibu Bay Breeze. So it's kind of like all those things mixed together in a way. So it's 2 ounces of rum, 2 ounces of blue curacao. Been getting a lot of use out of that alcohol recently. Anytime you need,
I know, right?
Anytime you need the color blue, that seems to be the color you use. That seems to be the liquor you use. Then I used 2 ounces of orange juice, 2 ounces of pineapple juice, 1 tablespoon of lime juice, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and 1 egg white. That's to make the sea foam. Then you pour that into a shaker with ice, you shake it up, and then you pour it into a tumbler glass with ice, and you garnish with a lemon wheel. The lemon wheel being your son, and the egg white makes this nice like froth on top of it. And I gotta say, it does look like the ocean. Like,
yeah, no,
that was the idea
I'm
of
enjoying it.
the ice cubes being in it kind of come up, and the egg
Like
white.
a nice ocean too, not like the Jersey Shore.
No,
Like a tropical.
This is
Like a Caribbean, yeah.
gorgeous Baja beaches, like right here, you know. Like,
Right.
but yeah, I wanted the egg white to kind of froth up and make it look like white caps, and
it lasts a while too.
Yeah, it
Actually,
does.
I thought that would, like, as you drink it, would sort of go away, like the froth of the beer or something like that. But it stays. It's there as we get all the way down to the bottom.
Now we used egg whites for our Christmas cocktail for Love Actually, and ever since that was the first time I ever used egg whites in a cocktail. Now anytime I do something sour, I like to put the egg whites in because it helps cut down on that sourness as you put it to your lips, but it also adds like a richness to it.
Yeah.
It adds a little bit of like thickness to the cocktail, and it makes you feel like you're drinking something of substance. So even though it's very
I love it. Yeah.
it's very light, it's very tropical, it's very
But I also think it did cut down into the sugar, so
Yeah.
it doesn't taste as sweet.
yeah, and
It's a good balance.
I gotta say, yeah, it's pretty well balanced. Obviously, I'll be putting up pictures on Twitter, and we'll be getting pictures up there. I guess I should address the fact that we don't have a cocktail manual yet that was supposed to come out. I cannot find a publisher for this. And
Self-publish?
It turns out it's super hard to self-publish too, because
Yes, it is.
it's mostly pictures.
Oh yeah. Well, I know what that's about.
Yeah, so it's mostly pictures. So like one of the things I found out was like a lot of the stuff that I was putting in these pictures was, we don't have the copyright for.
that is true. Yeah.
So like even the Nintendo controllers
Yeah.
in the Mario Mushroom shot that we did, they told me that I couldn't even use them in there because that is proprietary equipment and has a copyright on it. So I can't put that in there at all. So I'm going to have to go back and make all of our old cocktails again, take new photos for them, and then do new write-ups for them and everything like that to then get it done. And I mean, alcohol is not like terribly expensive, but it's expensive enough that
You're making that many cocktails.
yeah, I'm gonna have to make like one a week for the next like year to catch up.
So the book may still be coming out.
So the book may still be coming out, but even self-publishing, like I wasn't able to do it. Like no one would allow me to distribute it anywhere because of the copyrighted material that I was putting there. Like I can't even have the DVD cases in there. I can't even have a picture of the movie in
blur
there.
it out or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Copyright stuff.
No, all this copyright stuff. So like, so then I was even thinking like, well, so how would I do this? Like, how do I put this book together? And like, I'm going to have to say like, this is the Point Break cocktail, but I can't use any of the logos from the films. I can't use any still frames from the films. I can't use any pictures from the films.
You could misspell it.
Right.
Point with an E at the end.
But I can put point. No, but I can say it's the Point Break cocktail, but I can't put like the cover of the movie in there,
Yeah.
like the movie's poster in there anywhere.
Yeah.
Which I was like, man, so like,
That just seems weird because I would think, even though that the movie's copyright, like the image, I would feel like is just
right.
something
It's
like
promotional stuff, right?
Promotional, yeah.
That's what I thought too. It's promotional stuff, and I thought even if I put like the copyrighted symbol in the bottom of it and put like, let's say copywritten Warner Brothers 1991 at the bottom of it, that should be enough. To that I'm giving credit. Like I'm not saying I created this. I'm giving credit to the creators of it. But
That's like I made Point Break. Yeah.
yeah, right. I made Point Break. I made this drink, and
Same thing.
like
Yeah, bro.
yeah, bruh. I totally made Point Break, bruh.
Hopefully you can work around it somehow.
So yeah, it's going to be a long road to getting that cocktail manual out. We might wind up with 2 seasons of this show and like 36 odd some drinks to put into like
We can do
one
a best of maybe.
massive manual.
That's fine.
So yeah, it's going to take me some time to get back to that. So let's get into the film itself. Let's get into discussing the film and some of our favorite bits from it. All right, so Point Break starts off with a training montage Most of the time, you have to wait like till 20 minutes into a movie, midway through a movie, to get into it. They give you a training montage right up front, and we see the training of Johnny Utah, who is a former college football player, football star.
With a name like that, I mean, could you be anything else?
right.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that at some point someone refers to him as like Johnny Unitas or something. It's like, no, that's Johnny Utah, man.
Come on.
And they so after he blew his knee out and had to take 2 years off for surgeries, he lost his chance at going to the NFL, going pro, and he had to join.
Well, Bodie
the
was the
FBI.
only one that recognized him, correct?
That's correct. So that to me like really surprised me. So here's this guy who is like, I'm assuming Buddhist, surfer guy.
I think the character is supposed to be like the ultimate male or male fantasy. Like he just knows all things masculine.
He's always in control.
Always in control
So
of
he
the
has to know everything more than
He's got a
it's just a
mullet.
male thing. Yeah, he needs to know everything. He needs to be in charge. So he had to be the one that recognized.
He
him,
fucks
because
your soon-to-be girlfriin already. Like, you know,
Wait,
it's like,
you're getting the
he's just
seconds.
like he's done it all. He's been there and done that.
I picture he smells like sandalwood, like all the time.
Not even when he's doing this movie. All the time.
Just all the time.
Not just in Point Break.
So,
Every movie.
Johnny Utah then goes to the LA office of the FBI and he meets Dr. Cox. And he's playing like somewhat the same character, just without like the funny bits. He's just an asshole.
Yeah.
It's John C. McGinley,
He's just in everything.
right? Who was in a ton of like
He
'90s
just
action
shows up
films.
in every every 90s movie.
And here he is here, and he is assigned to the aging partner, the old man played by Gary Busey, who has that line where he's like, I was taking shrapnel in Saigon while you were wiping shit on your cheeks. It's just like, what? It's like, what the fuck?
You're wiping shit stains out of your underwear or something like that. Yeah.
Gary Busey is a national treasure.
Nah,
though,
but-
isn't he?
He is.
I mean, then he has that most famous line: "Young, dumb, and full of cum."
Young, dumb, full of
Oh, no,
cum.
was- I thought that was John C. McGinley, but maybe he said a couple times. Who knows?
I do like the way that Gary Busey meets Johnny Utah, where they're in the they're at the pool and he's like 22 years as an agent and I've never known what jumping into the water and picking up 2 bricks while blindfolded has ever done for me. And then he starts going off, you believe me, they're giving this dumb kid, and he starts bashing Johnny Utah like right in front of Johnny Utah. It was a nice icebreaker for these two meeting each other, and it showed you that Johnny Utah, while he's a young guy and stuff like that, he's not above taking a little bit of ribbing, like he gives as good as he gets and stuff like that, and immediately
they dive right
they're
into
likable.
it.
They
You
do.
know, there's no sugarcoating. They just get right into it.
Immediately after all this Johnny Utah meeting stuff, we get a robbery scene with the ex-presidents as they go in. There's, I believe, what are the masks? There's Lyndon B. Johnson, Nixon, Reagan, and I don't know. I guess the other one's JFK. I guess they're supposed to be like the most recent presidents.
Okay.
I guess maybe someone skipped Jimmy Carter, but everyone skips Jimmy Carter. No one cares. So they are robbing a bank, and we kind of get this idea of just how dangerous these guys are, because there's some brutality in their robberies. Like I think the Ronald Reagan guy walks up and who is Bodie, but he smashes a guy in the face with the butt of his gun and stuff like that. They're pointing guns at people, threatening people, and then we get to see the investigation side of it. After that happens, we find out what makes this a bank heist movie, in that these guys are so good at robbing banks. They're never in a bank for more than 90 seconds. They're in and out in under 90 seconds, and every guy knows their job. 2 guys are crowd control, while the other 2 guys are cleaning the registers. And the one guy, we even see like how well versed he is in where the die pack is, because he throws it up in the air and it explodes and stuff like that. They knew it had the die pack in it, and they knew not to take
And they
that
never
one.
go for the vault.
Right, and they never go for the vault. And so immediately, they're talking about...
That's what over history, you always hear that.
Right.
It's the truth. I mean, it's the only way, if you ever really want to be a genuine, successful robber, I mean, that's the only way to do
don't
it.
get greedy,
You
yeah.
can't get that greedy.
All you potential criminals out there, make sure you listen.
Make sure you listen to that.
Spoiler alert.
Go for the... I mean, but honestly, what are they getting out of those drawers? $1,500, $2,000? Like, you're not getting a lot out of the
I'm
drawers.
just surprised that surfers could be so organized
Yeah.
and efficient.
But again, if
But that comes from the leadership of Bodie.
right.
But if you've hit enough banks and you're not greedy and that's all you do.
A little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to make the money.
30 banks over 2 years is what they say. So they've been doing it successfully for 2 years without being caught. And this is also where we find out about Gary Busey's theory on them.
And I like that scene because Keanu Reeves kind of goads him into it.
Yeah.
He's like antagonistic with him. And so you can see how they kind of work as partners in that scene.
Yeah, they find a getaway car. The getaway car is always ditched several miles from the scene. It's always some jalopy that they pick up that's good enough just to get them out of eyesight. And then they drop it off and they immediately, hightail it out of there.
I mean, it's stereotypical, but I think it is always a positive thing for cops to be like a yin and yang, like old guy, young guy.
Are you mad? Yeah, you goddamn right I'm mad.
It's different perspectives.
Good, it's good to feel alive.
Yeah, exactly. Because Gary Busey, he's everyone's laughing at him for his crazy theory, but Keanu Reeves actually is interested in what he has to say. So I think that's kind of like a cool thing. Yeah.
Well, he's there. He's young, dumb, full of comedy.
Yeah, so he's open to ideas.
But he's open to ideas.
But he's also young.
And
that's the key thing. It's like he's young and he's actually open-minded to different kind of options and theories.
Yeah.
And he's straight from school,
Yeah.
So then we get that scene that's kind of like where the idea of the movie really takes off. It's really like the end of the first act, and it's only 20 minutes in. And they go back, they're watching the surveillance video, they're going over the evidence, and Gary Busey's explaining his theory as to why he believes that it's surfers who are committing these crimes. He's talking about
Check out that tan line.
Right, the tan line where a swimsuit would cover, like that. He also talks about how there's a mixture of someone scuffs the counter while jumping over it, and it leaves like asphalt. It leaves asphalt, sand, and sex wax on it. And sex wax is obviously used for greasing up your board to give you traction and stuff like that. So he tells him that he believes that it's a gang of surfers, and therefore Johnny Utah is the right age and can act in the right way to infiltrate the surfing community and find out who it is. And then we kind of go on this, and it's kind of like almost like comical the way like they go about it at first.
And they do. They make fun of themselves.
Where he gets
really
like embedded in the culture.
Right. If Bodie didn't know anything about college football, Johnny Utah would have been fucked. He would have been walking around the beach for 2 fucking years, ripping hair out of guys' heads, trying to match the sample to everybody. And that's how they would have done it. Also, not how police work is done. You cannot just walk up to anybody and be like, "You got a bee on your hair, bro." And like, pull it out. Saved your life.
Look, he was young. He was brash. He had his own way of doing things.
Full cum.
And I was trying not to say that, but yeah, basically.
It's the crux of the movie. Young, dumb, full of cum. Except Swayze was like 45. But,
And the precinct hated this theory. So they were just waiting to pull the plug.
Oh, absolutely.
So like when they were fucking up in the beginning, they were really, really trying to just like end this theory and just stop it.
So they immediately go for the hardest motherfuckers on the beach. They go after, I believe his name is Warchild.
Yeah, the neo-Nazis.
Yeah. Which they are, they are extremely dark-skinned to be neo-Nazis. Does anyone else think that? Does anyone else look at that?
It is California
too.
Yeah.
It's California.
I was just like...
Nazis I thought were like supposed to not have hair.
They're Aryan. Yeah. I mean, but whatever. Yeah. Whatever fits the purpose of the movie. Yeah.
Style over substance right now.
Nazis, yeah.
They're a little surf Nazis.
Wasn't that a movie?
That was.
Must Die. Maybe that's what they're going for.
Yeah. So they immediately go after Warchild and his crew, and in his crew is of course Anthony Kiedis, where we get that awesome scene where he mugs for the camera. Yeah, like that's it. He like duck lips before duck lips were popular. He was like, blood, sex, sugar, magic. Anyway, suck my kiss.
I just love that he's in this movie.
So do I, because they very easily could have went for Flea, who would have fit in as well.
Well, you can't get more Cali than Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh yeah,
no.
I read on a totally different note. I read his autobiography. And
did you?
He went
I've heard
through
that's really
some
good.
fucked up shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, his dad was kind of like
the one that got him into drugs. Yeah, big time.
His dad was like a shitty pimp.
Yeah.
And
he's an infamous California boy.
Yeah.
Infamous.
Like Anthony Kiedis was
now
like,
he's like
didn't he have
super clean?
Yeah.
And he does everything the right way, but
he had sex for the first time at like 12 years old.
It was like all of that.
And the first person to ever shoot him up was his dad.
Yeah. Wow.
So like he
was hanging out with movie stars because his dad was like involved in the movie scene, but behind the scenes. He wasn't like involved. He wasn't a producer or anything like that, but he was like, he would be the one that would get the actors and actresses their drugs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Huh. So like
he was always at the parties.
I read the biography as well, and it's really interesting. So like reading that and then going and listening to Under the Bridge, like it's actually heartbreaking. Like it's a heartbreaking song. Like, you know, you always knew it was like a sad song, but now you hear like the story behind Under the Bridge, and it's even sadder.
And like how he went from like being like up there right up top to like going and basically trading in his guitar for drugs at one point. Yeah. That's how desperate he was. You know, just like it was just really interesting then how he turned it all around. I wouldn't mind
reading that actually.
Well, his big turnaround was their bassist OD'd, didn't he? And that was kind of like the whole band's like big turnaround. Like all of them began. I'm not going to say like, you know, they stayed clean, but like it was they started flirting with the idea of getting clean.
I can't wait for their movie
because right.
At this day and age, we're due for theirs now. This year it's Elton John. Yeah. Next year it might be Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I would definitely watch that. I would watch that over Dirt any day.
Yeah. I had fun with Dirt though. I did.
But anyway, so that's obviously going after War Child and stuff. It's the wrong path. Although they are criminals, they are terrible criminals. They are involved in what looks like heroin or crystal meth dealing. The FBI does a raid, and this is a little ridiculous. 4 FBI agents perform a raid. 4 agents.
That's all you need.
Not FBI SWAT. just 4 agents. Oh, and let's not forget, one of them is at least 35 pounds overweight and probably about 20 years too old to be tackling guys.
Hell yeah.
But they go on this raid, and it doesn't really pan out for them. But Johnny Utah kind of goes
But we do see some titties.
We do. We do see some boobies.
That's part of the reason I was sneaking downstairs when I was a kid.
Me and Lauren actually commented like, kudos to that girl for like being able to fight naked. That's not an easy thing to do. But she fights off 2 FBI agents naked. Successfully.
Not quite Viggo Morton style, you know.
Right.
You know, that's a little different.
Or you know, for nerdier people, Eddie Dean from the Dark Tower series, but you know.
Oh yeah.
So it doesn't pan out. Really, Johnny Utah goes to soak his sorrows in his woman, and he goes to that beach party. Actually, no, the beach party actually happened before this because he oversleeps for going to his own raid. But then so he goes to soak his sorrows, and he starts falling in deeper with Bodhi and his gang. And this is about the time that he starts to realize, actually, it's Gary Busey who realizes that it's Bodhi and them. Like they've been looking for surfers, guys who are extremely close knit, and they got the hair sample from the guy who I believe matched Gromit. And that's what leads them to Bodhi. So Johnny Utah then has to infiltrate them. Now, the way I always remember the movie was that Johnny Utah successfully infiltrates them and goes on crimes with them, but that's not the way it happens at all. He actually gets goaded into going onto the crime spree with them when they go to rob the bank.
They find out before.
Right. They kidnap They kidnap his
the girl. Yeah.
Well, it's actually a happenstance that they come across them, right? Like him and Gary Busey are, ironically getting donuts.
Of course.
As they rob the bank across the street, and they chase them down. And this is where Johnny Utah gets seen by the first time by them. And now at this point, him and Bodhi have become, I don't want to say like, best buds.
Bromance.
Yeah, but
close.
But there's an attraction between them for sure.
There's electricity.
As we all are attracted to Swayze in some way.
Sure.
It's the sandalwood.
It's that sandalwood smell.
You can smell it through the screen. Yeah.
But it's also that fight that he had with Warchild's, and he's doing Roadhouse in that scene when he's fighting Warchild. And he's like Roadhousing it up. He roundhouse kicks a guy.
Epic.
In the sand. It is epic. It is. And then he escorts Johnny Utah to his car. Milady. After you, bro.
Thanks. Such a romantic.
Thanks, bro. You saved me.
I mean, this was like a bromance before that was a big thing.
Yeah,
So, like,
it was. I mean, the only other bromance that's just as gorgeous as Riggs and Murtaugh.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So he's chasing down Bodhi after them, robbing the bank, and I do like this car chase. It's kind of like a fun car chase, but what's more fun is the foot chase that takes place after that when Bodhi they've been extremely careful about not leaving DNA or any type of evidence behind. He does express cleanup. And they go to the gas station and they light the gas on fire and they go to burn the Impala to the ground and stuff like that. Bodhi winds up catching on fire because Johnny Utah is just like, fuck it, I don't care if I got a pretty face and it gets burnt. I'm gonna tackle you in the fire. And he tackles him into the fire.
We should have made you do the whole podcast in that voice tonight.
So he's chasing Bodhi through the streets of LA, and they're going through these backyards and houses, and that's going to get way too annoying. I can't do that.
See, as a kid, I will have to say this. As a kid watching this movie from Australia, these are some of my favorite scenes as well, because I just love seeing all the different ways that America's portrayed,
right?
And that's what this is. You're seeing real houses. Yeah. They're going through the back streets.
Yeah.
Then you see, isn't that the aqueduct, the canal thing? What is that called? The
LA River.
The LA River. That thing. That was.
They're
iconic.
in Venice Beach right here.
Yeah, that was iconic. But going through all those houses, I just loved that scene. Just the way it showed.
You get the generic woman in a bathrobe and curlers in her hair, beating them with the vacuum. Get out of my house.
As if it happens every day.
Yeah.
Was there
choose somebody out every?
Was there anybody else watching them go through the backyards, and in your head you were going dun 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 dun
Exactly what I was
dun 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 wahoo 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 wahoo. Just reminded me of Ferris Bueller's Day Off so much. Okay. What are you cooking? Smells good.
Football and trampoline.
Right. Yeah. If this movie was made in 2010, this would 100% be a parkour scene.
Parkour! Michael, parkour! Parkour! Extreme! Parkour! Parkour!
This is Parkour, internet sensation of 2004, and it was in one of the Bond films. It's pretty impressive. The goal is to get from point A to point B as creatively as possible, so technically they are doing parkour as long as point A is delusion and point B is the hospital.
Parkour!
Oh yeah.
Oh, of course.
Oh yeah.
Well, the remake. I mean, you said you watched 30 minutes of it.
First 30 minutes, couldn't get past it.
Was there any parkour in those 30 minutes?
No, but but it was more about it, less about surfing, more about just extreme sports in general. It's just
energy drinks,
dirt biking
and non CGI stuff. It's supposed to be all very
right. Solo climb, free solo climbing, and
on a waterfall.
Yeah,
this most exotic locations.
That's
they spent a fortune on this movie,
and they traveled around the world in this movie. It didn't take place in California; it was all over the world, and it sucked. Just such major fucking dick. But yeah, I could not get past 30 minutes of that movie at all. So we do get the scene where Bodhi's jumping over the fence and he turns around and clearly locks eyes with Johnny Utah, thus making the recognition that he is an FBI agent. So he kidnaps Johnny Utah's girlfriend or his former girlfriend, however you want to look at her.
In a very smart way too. It's not like he just kidnaps her.
Oh, no.
It's the whole video in the back of the van thing. And
so he kidnaps her and takes Johnny Utah and tells him that he's going to rob a bank with them. And if he doesn't do it, then she's going to die. His friend Rosie is going to kill her. And
Rosie's a very bad dude.
And Rosie's not a nice guy. And I can't remember her name. Who? Yes.
Yeah.
She
was big back then.
She was a big deal back then. She was in Free Willy, if I remember right. She was.
I think she was.
She was the whale trainer.
She was Tank Girl too.
She was also Tank Girl.
She did Tank Girl after this though, didn't she?
After this.
And she showed up in Orange Is the New Black recently.
Yes.
I think she's still. Yeah.
She's still acting now. So
I'm not gonna lie, I never thought she was attractive.
No.
Yeah, but she had that punk vibe though.
But that's why I think this made this a little bit different. She wasn't that big boobed, blonde, beach.
I know what you mean. She
babe
wasn't
of
like
what you would
Pam
think
Anderson.
about.
Yeah, she wasn't like that.
she was, but she was also in there. She was surfing
Right.
as well.
Like,
where
she's cute,
that
you know,
big
she's-
boob
yeah.
blonde woman
In
would be
'91,
surfing.
this could have been Yasmin Bleef. Like they could have gotten her.
I think they
to
went
do
that
it.
different angle.
Yeah, they went a different route with it. So, but Bodhi has to get to Rosie by 6 p.m. to tell him not to kill her. And if he doesn't do it, if Johnny kills him, then Johnny doesn't know where she is and she dies. So he kind of has to go along with everything. They rob
Is he the Joker? Like, what is
Right.
this elaborate plan he had? It's crazy.
Well, it depends because some of her might be somewhere or everywhere,
Depending on the time.
So he goes and robs the bank, and this is the first time where Bodhi's how do I put it? Like Bodhi's machismo gets the better of him. He's always been the type of guy who's in control. He's always been the leader.
Dog, yeah.
Right. And Johnny Utah has thrown him off now. And he didn't see it coming. So now he has to piss all over everybody and assert his dominance again and dry hump everybody. And that's what he's doing.
But I also think it's like as I was just saying,
Survival.
it's he knows this might be one of the last ones he might get to do.
Right. So
because he's been seen, they know who he is. Like all of the heists or the robberies before this, they had no idea who he was. Yet even if they bring him along, somebody knows who he is now. And it makes a difference in this. So he has to go for the vault. He has to do something bigger because he's afraid, I think, a part of it.
Yeah, and in this moment, he breaks his ultimate rule, and they go to the vault, and there just so happens because we're in America, and there's a guy there with a gun who's a cop, and the security guard has a gun. They get together, they decide, let's blow him away.
Let's be heroes.
Yeah, and they do. They shoot. I believe they shoot Bodhi in the chest. Then they shoot Keanu Reeves. They shoot Johnny Utah, and they shoot Gromit. But the bullets actually go through Gromit's vest and wind up killing him. And they that's where they run off to the airport. Gary Busey winds up meeting his end at the airport. By what's his name? Ratface? The Ratfink?
The Ratfink. The names of this movie are just
It's epic.
So they wind up flying off in a plane, and
this is a part I always remembered too, like from when I was a kid. Just like the fact that they, because the whole movie is based around surfing and bank robberies, and like you said, Rob, like just so many different elements to it. And like the fact that they end up skydiving and fighting in midair. I mean, that's just insane. But yeah, so it's crazy.
It wasn't expected. When
was
you're
not
first
expected,
watching
no.
it, you're like, okay, the plane's gonna be their getaway.
That's why I was like, did this actually happen? Like I had to
Yeah.
rewatch it to make sure. Yeah.
so they're up in the air, and Gromit gets thrown out of the plane first. He's bleeding. He's talking about he's cold, and Johnny Utah's like, "That's your blood running out of your body. You're gonna die, Gromit. You're gonna die." So he gets thrown out the plane, dies. Bodhi lands, and Johnny Utah is Bodhi jumps out the plane, and Johnny Utah.
Patrick Swayze really jumped out the plane. We do want to bring that up.
Don't they land on water too?
So no, that was the first jump they did together. I skipped that part because that was more of like bros just being bros.
Hardcore.
That was like, dude, that was bros holding hands in a circle.
That was
Yeah, it was like a 5-way windmill. I jerk you off, you jerk me off. Feels
exactly.
good, sir. Feels good.
Their tips were practically touching. They were that bonded.
Yeah, it was a very bonding moment. So Bodhi jumps out of the plane after Gromit goes out, and he's already thrown the money out with Gromit and everything. And Utah's left with nothing. There's no parachute, and the plane is going to move on, and he's going to lose Bodhi. He'll never know whether his girlfriend is saved, and he just can't live with Bodhi winning.
Doesn't he have like this little tantrum thing almost in there before he jumps out?
He does.
He got psych himself into it. Yeah.
And then he just stops and he goes, "Fuck it."
Yeah, that part's great.
And he pulls a Travis Pastrana before Travis Pastrana was maybe even born, I think. Maybe Travis Pastrana was born in the late 80s, but Travis Pastrana was basically a drip down daddy's leg at this point. But Travis Pastrana is famous for jumping out of airplanes without parachutes. And that's what Johnny Utah does. Goes down without a parachute, latches on to Bodhi, pointing...
Is that what he used to do? Was just jump out airplanes and then attach himself to another person who is strapped up.
No,
with a
Travis
chute.
Pastrana used to throw his parachute out, wait 5 seconds, and then dive out after his parachute.
Oh,
Damn.
that's awesome.
It's on YouTube. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, he's done it. He's done it in a bunch of different ways, but he's jumped out of parachute.
He's still alive,
plenty of
I
times.
guess, right?
He is still alive.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's done it all
Good for
though,
him.
hasn't he? I mean, just to get on a total sidetrack, he was like in like car racing.
Well,
he was
so-
like extreme biking.
That Point Break remake is really trying to like feed into the Nitro Circus crowd, like those type of people that like are like Travis Pastrana, these like adrenaline junkies, and it's like it's such a small market to try to please. That's it's super small. There's not a lot of us that were born without that part of our brain who don't fear fear. So Johnny Utah is hanging onto Bodhi's parachute. He's pointing the gun at Bodhi's head, but he can't pull Bodhi's ripcord. And this is the same thing that they did before when they had jumped before. You pull your, you pull yours. No, you pull yours. Like, and it's
No,
like,
you hang up first. No.
yeah, exactly.
It's so cute.
It's adorable, their bromance. So Johnny Utah has to let go of the gun to pull the chute, and they both reach the ground. Johnny Utah landing on that bad knee comes back. Chekhov's gag. If you talk about something in the first act, has to come back up
Wait,
in the
but
third
didn't you
act.
heard it earlier as well during the run?
No, he lands on that leg. Most of the weight.
Oh, I think during a run, something flared up.
Yeah.
I think something
Because
flared up.
he shoots in the air, isn't that
Because
during
he's
the run?
angry. He's like, "Dah!"
No,
he
he
shoots
shot in the air because he just didn't want to kill Bodhi. I mean,
But I know that part. But
That too.
he'd fallen. He was on the ground because he'd like landed funny on his knee.
it's possible. Yeah, I don't.
You just saw it last night, Dave.
Yeah, but this is not a movie you watch
it sounds about right.
unattentively. I had cell phone in hand while watching this movie. I was not deep diving into it as heavily as I might for some
Cell
other
phone
ones.
off, engaged.
Yeah, this is not that movie. By like the 90th bro, I would have been like, I'm done. Even though we're the super movie bros, I could only
and
handle
that was 20 minutes in.
That was 20 minutes in.
90th, bro.
So Bodhi winds up getting away, though. He releases Johnny Utah's girlfriend. He gets away. Him and Rosie go off. His entire gang's dead, though. It's just him. And him and Rosie go pick up the money, and they drive the Jeep off into the sunset. And we get, I believe it's 3 years later. Isn't that what it says on the screen? It's 3 years later, and we're in... obviously the Pacific Northwest, but what they say is Queensland, Australia.
No, Bells Beach is in Victoria.
Okay, so they're on Bells Beach. I don't believe there's any evergreens on Bells Beach. No, so they're clearly in either
Bells
Oregon.
Beach doesn't look like that at all.
So they're either in Oregon or in
Are you saying Point Break lied to me?
or Washington, and that's where we get the scene of the guy with the world's worst Australian accent. Oh yeah, it's like what? What did he just say? They got a guy that's like who did a Boomhauer impression as he walked past Johnny Utah. Hang on, man, gonna give it right now on my map. And there's Bodhi on the beach with a fresh haircut. Yeah, shaved, staying on the beach.
Didn't they make a point? Now, this is something, if I remember correctly as well. Didn't they make a point that they found Rosie in pieces somewhere at some point?
I don't recall that.
I remember
He was on his phone at that point.
Yeah. No, I remember it talks about something about how, like, at one stage he found Rosie in pieces, almost to make the point that, like, Bodhi
killed him.
Yeah. Didn't need him anymore and killed him.
I don't think so.
I don't know. Yeah, Bodhi did everything he could. Like they even mentioned earlier on, when Gary Busey's talking about how the robberies go down. 30 robberies in 2 years. They've never used their weapons. They've never hurt anybody. They've never had to use their weapons. So that cop that they killed in that bank robbery with Johnny Utah was actually the first person that Bodhi had to kill. So unless the character development for Bodhi they're trying to make is he's been a psychopath into making, and once he got his first kill under his
But I
belt.
don't even see that.
No.
It doesn't make any
Kidnapping
sense.
of the girl and giving it to Rosie, who he's prepared to let him cut her up.
I felt like
but
that was
even
fake.
then,
I never really believed it.
he's not the one killing her.
Yeah.
There's always a disconnect.
Well,
for-
then that is true. That is true. And he's all about his mission as far as like just getting his money and doing his vibe
Right.
and doing his thing.
But
yeah,
so-
exactly.
they're on the beach, and Johnny Utah and Bodhi have another fight together. They're beating each other up, and Bodhi has the upper hand, hands down. He's beating the crap out of Johnny Utah, and Johnny Utah does a little dirty trick. He handcuffs them, and he handcuffs them both together. And this is the set of waves that Bodhi was talking about.
Like
the 30-year storm?
Yeah. Every 30 years, you get these.
Well, they set that up earlier in the movie, too.
They did. 10 to 20 foot, 20 to 30 foot swells, all this stuff. And only someone who's truly insane would ever do it. And, for
bitching, man.
Yeah. for Bodhi, it's the ultimate high. It's something he's waited his entire life for. So he convinces Johnny Utah to let him go, and he paddles out and he goes to ride this massive wave.
Sunset, sort of,
even though it's raining. Which does it even rain in Australia all that often?
Victoria with those beaches, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fair enough.
Actually, the weather in the Pacific Northwest East would be very similar to weather in that area.
It's supposed to be a storm too, obviously. So
right, yeah. So he takes the wave, and we clearly see Bodhi go down, and we hear
paddle out very far to get a big ass wave.
He doesn't surf it very long.
He didn't do very well.
Like that must be a wave in like 2 foot worth of water.
But there's also like massive rock croppings, like just right there. And I was like, is this the best place to ride this wave? Is here?
Well, he clearly had a death wish anyway. So
well, yeah, he didn't want to go to jail for the rest of it. He did kill a cop, so he doesn't want to go to jail. He could get the death penalty.
Yeah. He won that last high.
Are we to expect that maybe that he could have gotten away? I mean, can you imply that at all?
I don't think so. Johnny Utah was
tracked him down because of the waves, the best surf. That's how he found them.
I don't think he ever thought he was getting away. I don't think so. No.
Like, otherwise, there was no other way for anybody to find him because, I mean, at that time, there's no way to track him. He's across the seas. He's out of the States. He's not gonna find him. He's so low maintenance to begin with. But Johnny Utah knows him, his personality, what he's attracted to.
Oh, yeah.
And he went to those spots.
So, and this also opened up a whole...
That's what I'm saying, where he picks up about Rosie, because as he's talking about how he tried to find him, he talks about how he found Rosie in pieces somewhere. So that goes into what you were just saying about that, was that he'd been tracking him for this like 3 years.
This made me wonder, like, Bodhi always traveled where summer was, where the waves were and stuff like that. Was he robbing banks in Victoria, Australia as well? Like, was he robbing banks everywhere he went?
Probably.
I think he was probably laying low on his money.
It would explain why the Australian government was so willing to allow one FBI agent to come and take this guy out. But I do love the way the Australian cop's like, we'll just wait for him to come back.
He's coming back.
He's not coming back, bro.
That's stupid.
He's not coming
back. These American cops, and they'd be jumping in on surfboards trying to catch him. I'm like, no, these strangers just going to sit back. If he dies, it's less trouble.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
There's not as much paperwork.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, didn't you guys have a prime minister just go disappeared?
Harold Holt.
Harold Holt. Yeah, he disappeared, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then there's all those.
Went for a swim.
There's all those conspiracies.
Really? Did he catch a wave?
Oh yeah, he
and surfing. He went for a swim. Not.
In the ocean.
It was in Victoria, so it wasn't near.
And he was also a world class swimmer, by the way. But he also was nursing an injury.
I mean, the conspiracy theories are plenty on that. They say he was a Russian spy.
He was a Chinese spy. A Chinese submarine picked him up. Oh yeah.
I mean, I've heard it all.
Wow.
But
did he have a mullet?
Yeah, he just no.
See, our news is all flooded by Trump, so we're not even like.
No, this isn't recent. 1960s.
I don't know.
Oh, that was like a long time.
Yeah, this is
1960s.
Yeah, no, this is a long time ago before we were all around.
But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
No one ever found the body.
No
one ever found Bodhi's body either. That was what I'm assuming. So I don't
they're
know
together.
whether.
That's a good point. I didn't think
Harold
about that.
Holt and Bodhi together.
Yeah. With Bodhi's money.
And a whole new bromance.
That's the sequel
That's
we've been waiting
Staying with Tupac.
Well, I mean, if they both are dead, we're gonna have to learn necromancy to get them back. I mean, Patrick Swayze is no longer with us, unfortunately. Died of pancreatic cancer a couple years back. So
rest in peace. Yeah.
But yeah, so
it's an appropriate ending, I think, for the movie.
But
100% appropriate.
I didn't get why he waited till this. I mean, I guess you could say that like he finished his chapter where he throws his badge into the water. That's in this, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. That's the very last thing.
I didn't really understand that. I didn't think that was within his character. I thought that was out of character. I
didn't totally buy that. Yeah, that was a little.
That was one of my things that just kind of bothered me a little bit at the end because it just did not jive well with that character at all. Because he would have stayed in the Force forever.
Right.
That's just his makeup.
Yeah.
Actually, we dictate that we don't call it the Force anymore. It sounds a little too aggressive.
The Force.
It's too in line with Star Wars. You
No,
gotta separate the two.
I'm talking about Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz plays so much homage to this movie.
Oh yeah.
Where he talks about, have you ever fired an entire clip into the air? Oh!
That and Bad Boys, yeah.
Yeah, you ever seen Bad Boys 2?
How about Bad Boys 3 coming out soon, 2020?
Bodhi going off into catching that last big wave, it makes sense. But yeah, him throwing his badge away at the end.
Yeah, I mean the wave part, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But the throwing of the badge in, I'm just like,
I love the wave. I hated the badge.
Well,
It was
if
one of those
you
things.
think about like John C. McGinley's character in the film, like they were right, like, but because of the way the FBI runs, they weren't able to conduct their investigation the way they wanted. You know, Johnny Utah is kind of seeing the flaws of the criminal justice system.
He did have to take it upon himself to do a lot of things, and
right. But, and at the same time, you know, Bodhi asked him, "Have you been surfing?" And he's like, "Every day." Like, so, like,
he's living the life. Bro.
He's right. He's found a peace within himself, and I think, like, for Johnny Utah, joining the FBI was something he did because he felt useless. Right? Like, he was injured, and he had this big football career ahead of him, and
ego.
The football career is gone. What else can he do?
Okay.
And a lot of guys who are like that, who are quarterbacks, who are these big time athletes, they also have a hero complex, and I believe that's what Johnny Utah had. And when he tried to become a hero, he wound up getting led down the road of being a villain so easily that I think, like, towards the end, you know, I feel like he didn't need that hero role anymore, and he had found his peace through surfing, which is what Bodhi preached. It wasn't like Bodhi was wrong the entire time. It's just that, you know, he didn't
the
fucking
whole Robin
drink.
Banks thing was a little
too much, you know. Like he could have just led the simple life, and I think that's what Keanu Reeves' character wants at this. That's what Johnny Utah wants at this point. He wants to live the simple life.
He found a different purpose, I guess.
Right.
I think he's on it.
It's well put, Dave, but they just did not portray that on screen well enough.
Quitting by throwing his badge in the water. When
This movie just ends. Like
it's like a dramatic ending, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's the way I take
back
it.
to pick it up so he can actually give it to his boss back at headquarters.
That's the way I take it when I'm watching
throws
it.
it down. And
During the credits, he goes back.
You know, I better take that back.
But it's
I'm not going to get my deposit back if I don't.
Exactly.
it's not explicitly said. And nothing about this ending is explicitly
But that makes
said.
sense.
That's true. Yeah, leaves it to interpret.
So if that's what they tried to portray, it just didn't work.
No.
It's not for me. But
I get what Dave's saying.
But no, it's a
He's
fun
sold me on it.
ride, right? And that's the end of the movie. So
Yeah, and they have to end the movie somehow, right? Like, if Johnny Utah kept his badge in his pocket and went off, then what growth did your main character have throughout this movie at all?
I just find it. I'd find it funny that some kid just walking along the beach finds this FBI badge.
I'm in the FBI
He grows
now.
up.
Oh, FBI!
Starts pulling cars over. I'm the FBI. You know.
All right, so I mean that's Point Break in a nutshell, in a brief sort of synopsis.
In a bro show.
Let's get into some of the behind the scenes stuff and just some of our ramblings. So, if the story for Point Break sounds super familiar to you, it's because you probably remember this story when you saw it in Fast and Furious from 2001.
Surfboards with cars. And then,
which
our generation's Point Break.
like when I was watching this, no, I mean our generation's Point Break is Point Break. I saw Point Break long before I saw this, before I saw Fast and Furious for sure.
Yeah, but this was when I was like in 10th grade or something like that. I was a teenager, so the Fast and the Furious movie was more. I felt like my generation.
I mean, it's
movie.
almost like beat for beat the same. A young FBI
absolutely.
agent moves there and to LA, infiltrates a gang of some extreme sports thing.
Same structure.
Car racing.
Yep.
Except like what I texted you guys last night was instead of preaching like peace, like Bodhi did, like and worshiping the ocean, Dom preaches family. And Brian becomes part of the family.
Until the Rock comes
Until the
and fucks
Rock.
it all up.
But I mean, even the movie ends very much the same way, where like Brian gives up being an officer after he allows Dom to do his one final quarter mile, just like Bodhi wanted to catch his final big wave. Like and I was like, holy shit! Like while watching this, like I put them two together. I was like, they are the same fucking movie.
Fast and Furious
Maybe the same
sequels.
producer.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do some research on that.
James Cameron? It wasn't. James Cameron was the producer on Point Break.
The only producer?
Well, I'm sure.
See?
Yeah, there's 1,000 producers for every. Dude, you can get a producer credit just for getting a studio exec the blowjob that he needed that day. Like, I mean, like,
if you give Harvey Weinstein a blowjob, you got a producer credit.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
We talked about how original Point Break is, but then Fast and Furious got driven into the ground with many, many sequels. So
right, and the first
and spin-offs now,
and spin-offs.
The first Fast and Furious was like
it was great.
It wasn't like hugely popular. Like it was successful.
Yeah, it wasn't a huge.
It wasn't a juggernaut. I mean, so much so that like most of them didn't actually want to come back to do the sequel when the sequel came around. I mean, we shouldn't talk about Fast and Furious too much because something tells me we are going to be doing.
I'm sure it'll come
up.
Isn't
that the truth though? Because what's his name didn't come back for it.
No, Vin Diesel did not come.
He didn't, and then his career sort of tanked a little bit, so he had to come back for that.
He has a cameo in the third one though.
So he kind of went off to be like quote unquote a serious actor. He did a bunch of like smaller like indie films and stuff like that in that time, and there was some buzz around him being like a really good actor, and none of those projects ever really panned out, and it turned out that because he's a solid actor is what it comes down to, and that's it.
Serviceable,
right? And I think like after years of trying, he realized like I'm really good at being this type of character.
And once you have your first kid, you realize I just want that money.
Right.
It's all about the money.
I'm just gonna do what gives me the box office, gives me this residual.
So Vin Diesel immediately is like, I will do Fast and Furious, which is Fast and Furious 4. He goes off and does another Riddick movie and stuff like
Chronicles
that.
of Riddick,
and he even returns for Triple X at one point.
How much does he make for saying I am Groot? Doesn't he make like an astronomical like?
To be fair, he has to say it in like 120 different languages. Like he records for like days doing that. That's not easy. But also as method acting as Vin Diesel
also different kind of like
inflections.
ways to do it. Yeah. So
I'll give you that.
He also he's such a method actor that when he does that, he insists on being in an extra large booth because he comes to his recording sessions wearing stilts.
Shut the fuck.
Kid you not
up.
Could you go watch videos? He showed up.
Stop.
He was wearing
I
stilts.
just don't see him as a method actor. That's all.
It's got to be a joke.
He shows up in like a white t-shirt, like and he's got sunglasses on, and he's in the recording booth, and he's just going.
I think I've lost a lot of respect for him.
I am Groot. Like, and he does it in all the languages. He's pretty good. I gotta say, but yeah, that's his.
But we digress.
Let's get back to some little things about Point Break. Patrick Swayze, all of his own stunts, as much as he could,
until he gets injured. And
he got injured,
forced to
How early
not
on
do
was
all the
that?
stunts.
Does anyone know?
No, he actually did a lot of his own surfing stunts, is from what we read, and he did all of his own skydiving stunts because he was actually a very accomplished skydiver. By the time they were filming this movie, so
almost everybody that was like in the movie was a surfer that they got to be in the movie. It wasn't like they trained actors to be surfers, except Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves. And Keanu Reeves, just like Johnny Utah in the movie, he loves surfing so much that he still does it to this day.
He still does it to this day, right?
From his Point Break days.
But Patrick Swayze doesn't do it to this day because he's dead.
He's dead.
Thanks, Steve.
Wow.
I wasn't sure.
That went morbid really quick.
Surfing.
Can I mention that
surfing the clouds in heaven?
The word "fuck" is said 105 times in this movie.
All right.
Wow.
All right.
I don't remember that.
It almost comes close to Wolf of Wall Street, which says it once every
that's not. They have the record.
It's like
by far the record.
Goodfellas has got to have.
I think it's like once every 10 seconds. There's a fuck like in Wolf of.
And before that, I think it was Casino or Goodfellas. It was another Scorsese film.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
The word fuck loses its meaning in Wolf of
Yeah, but
Wall
you're
Street.
talking
Like,
about
it's-
91. You're talking about that was like scandalous.
Right, but that would be the only reason this movie's rated R.
Yeah.
Like, is the
There's
word
some
fuck being
titties
used.
and,
There's not a lot of boob, though. Like,
Yeah.
even the boob, it's all quick
There's the
cut.
requisite boob, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
some
There's
violence.
enough kid boob. We'll put
Yeah.
it that way.
Yeah.
Kids can see it and be, wow, that's boob.
But yeah,
Exactly.
I read through a lot of like the behind the scenes stuff on IMDb, and it's none of it's like super interesting. You know, some of it's like, oh, okay, I guess that's kind of cool, but like none of it's like, wow, like
Yeah.
you know. But
Like
you
some
did
of the other ones.
you did say that there was alternate titles to this film.
Absolutely. Well,
before
you
Point
mentioned
Break.
one before. Johnny Utah was the original title that they were going to call the movie.
Hell of a name.
Okay. But did you know the other movie, the other title they were going to call it?
If they called it Johnny Utah, we clearly would have gotten sequels because they all would have been Johnny Utah : something something.
Point Break.
And then he would he have gone on to do John Wick after doing Johnny
Yeah,
Utah?
I don't know.
Right. Because originally, you know, Indiana Jones was just called Raiders of the Lost Ark. Even to this day, when Steven Spielberg talks about Indiana Jones movies, he refers to them as Raiders films. Like, that's what he calls them. But because Indiana Jones was so synonymous that all the rest of them were Indiana Jones and the. So, like, if this got a sequel, would they have retroactively put out, like, a box set of all the DVDs? Johnny Utah, Point Break.
It was originally also going to be called Riders on the Storm.
Okay. Well, that would have made that ending very telegraphed.
Yeah.
So,
A little obvious.
so that was another name it was going to be called.
Bit on the nose.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know.
I
Could've
think that's
just been
the whole
Bodhi.
reason why I think it was not called that.
But there is a point where someone does say Point Break in the movie. Like someone talks.
Yeah, they do talk about.
Someone does mention what a point
When we're
break
talking
is.
about surfing.
We're talking about surfing,
Right.
And like it was that moment where I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
there it is."
But also, it's like a metaphor, man. Like,
But-
think about it.
But also, like he
Wait,
comes
wait.
to a point break
Yeah.
in his life.
Yeah, man.
And just going back to those scenes, like again, growing up in Australia, seeing scenes like that where like there was all these like massive parties and bonfires on the beach. And
Were
shit
you
like
a
that.
surfer, bro?
That
That's what I was just wondering.
Wait,
Were you a surfer, bro?
I
Yo.
surfed. I bodyboarded. I never.
Oh, I was a
never
big
stood
fan of
up. I
bodyboarding,
never.
yeah.
bro.
Yeah.
I never stood up surfed because I'm too lazy for that. But
Never stood up, sir.
But
See,
like,
because I'm a rotund Italian man, when we go to the beach, we just body surf. Like we just use our
We just-
body.
yeah,
we just
lay
use
back
our
on the-
bodies as the boards, bro. we
We just
become
plow
one.
at the bottom of the ocean and fuck up our fucking chins and stuff. I scuffed up my chin a couple of times from
Well,
hitting the
when we
bottom.
went with John,
Oh, dude.
when we went with John, like the waves were like they told us like we couldn't go more than 5 feet out because
But we were stretching it.
like there was a huge storm which washed away most of the beach. Like when you went 5 feet out, you were actually in 5 feet of water too. It was
Yeah.
like up to your neck, and the breakers were just slamming so close to shore. We were trying to
boom,
body
boom,
surf,
boom.
and
Yeah.
like you would body surf, and before you knew it, like the wave was crashing onto the beach,
Yeah.
and your body was just getting slammed onto
Yeah.
the beach.
me and my brother Troy, we watched Endless Summer. That I don't know if you've ever seen those surf movies, Endless Summer and Endless Summer 2. Basically, they're surf movies where these like guys just go around the world just surfing. And we thought we were the biggest people that could go surfing ever, but we didn't go surfing. We went bodyboarding. So we bought bodyboards and we went to
Here
Phillip
we call
Island.
it boogie boarding, guys.
Yeah, boogie boarding. So we went to Phillip Island back home in Australia, in Victoria. We were maybe 20 feet out in the water. There was some big waves going on that day. There was a little bit of a storm going on, and we didn't practice anywhere. We just jumped in thinking we could do it. You know, we'd seen TV. We were like, yeah, we
Saw
can just
Point
do
Break,
this.
And that's when you and your brother discovered the
Oh, man,
Prime Minister's body.
I caught this. I caught this one
It all comes
wave.
back around.
I caught this one wave and I thought it was the coolest thing until I got totally wiped out from it. And the only thing I remember is that the way that the wave hit me is I remember sitting on the bottom of the ocean.
Did you wipe out or did you wipe out, bro?
I was wiped, but I was sitting on the bottom of the ocean. I had my board attached with one of those cables. My hand was up in the sky in the water. Because the board was way above me, and I just remember sitting there going, "I'm going to drown," and I'm sitting there, and then the next wave was about to crash, and I got up and I got an air, some air, and I eventually got back to shore. I tell you what, I think I maybe boogie boarded maybe 3 more times after that. I was not very good.
Was it a sick wave though?
Yeah.
I was sick.
You got totally brodied, bro.
I was like, "This is a sick wave, bro."
So, I mean, I think it's safe to say we all really enjoyed Point Break. Is really going too far.
It's hard not to enjoy
Yeah,
it.
it's a- yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
hard-
it's a
it's-
fun little movie.
It's a very movie. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could really just grab a box, whatever, of popcorn, lay back and just watch this movie.
It is a popcorn flick.
It's a definite
100%,
popcorn movie.
yeah.
Very entertaining movie. So, yeah.
But it's one that you can keep going back to every now and then
Yeah.
too. Like you can watch it. It's not like some of these movies that we've talked about even on Movie Cocktail where you're like, I'm not going to go back and watch that again. This is a movie that maybe, I don't know if you could sit back to back and watch it or something like that.
I was
you
like
could go
Dave. I
back-
didn't think revisiting this movie I thought it'd be kind of corny, whatever. But
Yeah, that's what I thought, too.
Yeah, but I ended up really enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. So
I mean, I really didn't think it was. I really didn't think it was that deep until I watched it again. I was like, it's not like I'm not saying it's super deep, bro.
Nah, but
like,
there's more to it than
there's a lot more to it than the action. Yeah, it's
it has some sick action too.
It's got some stuff there. More than you would expect, and
then once again, they have some amazing shots that are
some
absolutely
really nice
gorgeous.
cinematography.
So the cinematography sometimes are really cool.
Not Keanu's finest acting,
No.
maybe.
no,
but,
I actually
it's,
I actually found him pretty grating throughout this entire movie.
but I think it's more like the attitude that he had. You know what I mean? I think that was more what they were going for.
Only specifically when he's with the surfer guys. I got it. Like it matches.
Right, it matches.
Other
Well,
than
in
that,
everywhere
it was
else it
terrible.
doesn't match. Yeah.
Which was really surprising because I'm
But
like,
that might-
it would have
was
been
that part of
cooler.
the movie though, like as you said,
Maybe he
you just
wasn't
said
really one of them,
Like at the
yeah.
end of the movie, he gets it. That's who he is.
So
maybe-
I would believe it if he wasn't that way before he got to the servers, and then he becomes that way.
Because he had the exact same kind of like voice tone.
Right.
He was like me.
Yeah.
It's like Super Movie Bro J just trying to be like acting in a movie,
bro,
and be in the FBI. Like, yeah, let's get these bad guys. Like that'd be fun. Let's
Point
go.
Break remake with Jay. Rob, you're gonna play Bodhi. Mark's gonna be the
I'm gonna
director.
start growing out the mullet now.
I said Mark's gonna be the director.
Oh yeah, well, either that or Anthony Kiedis. But no, I mean, Keanu is Keanu, but
This is early.
It's early, and I think
Keanu,
he's definitely like a presence in the film, So
Here's one thing they've learned about Keanu in movies, and it's something that John Wick does effectively. Less is more with him. Like
he's limited for sure.
They
as
don't.
an actor.
He
and
doesn't.
his voice.
He doesn't talk a lot in the John Wick movies, and when he does it through this like deep.
those are
voice.
tongue in cheek too. I mean,
Yeah, they
He
are.
knows what he's doing with that one, but yeah, back then, I mean, this time he was really. I think this is probably right after Bill and Ted.
This
or
is
soon after it?
right after the first Bill and Ted. I want to say the second
Yeah.
Bill and Ted came out after this.
Yeah, so this was his sort of, I guess, dipping his toe in the water of being like an action star. So you see him in like the early stages of that.
And then he spends a long time as an
Yeah.
action star. Pretty much the whole 90s,
Up
he
until-
is an action star.
yeah, up until after Speed, I guess.
Or at least known as one.
Right.
Well,
For
no,
sure.
Up until 99 when he does
Matrix.
The Matrix.
Oh yeah, of course, Matrix. What am I thinking?
The action star. And then after
He is the
that,
one, yeah.
he goes through obscurity again for a while.
From what I've read about him,
It was the last time Warner
He's
Brothers was
not-
successful anyway.
He's not one of these like mega superstars.
He's not.
that I mean, there's stories of him like from Devil's Advocate that he gave up.
I secretly love that movie.
How
Yeah.
much?
Vanity. Definitely my favorite scene.
But he gave up a big portion of his salary so that they could get Al Pacino for the movie because they weren't going to get him for the movie, but he gave up his salary.
It feels so great. Every check I cashed was Keanu Reeves. It was his money.
No, there are lots of stories about Keanu Reeves in
But he
real
gives,
life being
he
like
gives
a cool
money
dude,
away. and stuff
Keanu
like
Reeves.
that.
He's got no ass.
He has he has a lot of tragedy in his
I think
personal
he does,
life.
like something to
so
do with his sister. Like his sister was an addict or something.
Yeah,
I think.
he's kept that secret for quite some time.
So, but everything I hear about Keanu Reeves is he's the type of guy that like there's some videos of him like doing this. Like he sits on like there was people videotaping. He sat on a park bench for like hours feeding pigeons. Like, and everyone's like.
Is that Keanu
You're
Reeves?
Keanu Reeves.
like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Is he
so like,
alright?
yeah, right. So, but he's a guy who like, even though he comes off as like, yeah, brah, like this like dumbass dude, like he's actually most of the time is deep in thought, and
Which is why he's actually pretty good for this movie. If
Right.
you think about it, yeah.
and he's also like this type of guy that like I hear no one has ever had like a bad experience meeting Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like he's apparently
All working with him, yeah.
right? Super down to earth guy. Like he's just salt of the earth, just so kind.
I know he's
and
big
nice
on
and
motorcycles. He has his own motorcycle company.
Yeah.
he was actually
Yes.
on,
Rides?
and I hate this show, but he was on Norman Reedus' Ride, which is like an AMC reality show that follows Norman Reedus. Keanu Reeves was actually on an episode just riding through California with Norman Reedus and stuff. And it was, but like, it was nice.
So he lives a life.
So yeah, I mean, and I think that's what he's more
Simplicity.
about.
Yeah.
Is
And it
he's
was
just-
early on in his career too.
He's a very simple guy.
Yes.
And I think that comes off, I would say, personal life more so than like his professional life, but he does do well in like these simple roles.
Exactly. And I think everybody, Hollywood and him included, know his limitations. And certain movies don't highlight.
No. I think at this
certain
point
things.
though, like
But
deep into his 40s, like he gets what he is as an actor.
Yeah.
And like
John Wick is him getting it.
Right. John Wick works for him, but then he'll also do like a romantic comedy and play
like a movie or something.
right. And he'll play a supporting role in a romantic comedy, and then he'll do like an indie flick like after that. And like
Sure.
and like he's found his mix now. Like he's found his use, and he works in these capacities and stuff like that, and he's kind of killing it now career-wise because when you find those niches, when you find those roles that are right for you is when you're really.
I don't think he's going to have much of a career when he gets old. Like,
No.
I can't. I just can't see him
But I can also see
finding
him,
any kind
like,
of roles.
fading away.
No, he'll
and
be
not
like
really
a
caring
Mentor,
about that.
maybe mentor roles, maybe.
He'll
I
be
don't
like
know.
a James Brolin. Like, Josh Brolin's father, James Brolin, he was big in the cowboy movies and stuff like that. He had some TV
I'm just
and
a little
some movie
worried-
success in the 70s and 80s, but then he kind of fell into obscurity. But now, he shows up in comedies or he shows up on a sitcom and stuff like that, and he's effective in the roles that he plays. That's Keanu Reeves' path. That's the path that he'll have. He'll
Makes
always
fun
be a
makes fun of himself.
He'll
like
always
his
be a working actor.
He'll have bit parts here and there. He'll
And he really
star
does
in
want to make
something,
Bill
but-
and Ted 3 as well.
No, it's happening.
Well,
It is.
hopefully.
It is. No,
is.
it's been officially announced. It's been officially announced.
Has it been official?
It's actually happening. Yeah.
I thought last I saw he was like, we really want to make it.
No, I believe him and Alex Winter is his name. They are in. Like they
I know I saw a photo recently within a couple
The
months.
Hollywood
Yeah.
Bowl or something like that, where they announced or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was even talk of one point that they were going to just crowdfund Bill and Ted 3.
That's what I thought they were doing. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's
But actually, the joke of that is like how old they are now. It's
You're
like-
right.
So, I mean, he will have
stallions.
he will have some kind of career, but yeah, it's hard to picture what it's going to be.
But that could play really well into
Oh,
the whole
totally.
theme of the movie.
Yeah, I'm sure
it's
it
a
will.
whole totally different time
Yeah.
frame in the in the way
And also with time travel
of them
element,
getting into
yeah.
being who they are. I mean,
It's
the only-
Rocky Balboa, but for Bill and Ted.
exactly.
They just got to get the beast out. All right, so we got another movie cocktail coming up next month, and as I teased before, the theme is Terror in the Woods, and I even put in parentheses on the thing, horror movies that take place in the woods. Horror, and there are a ton of horror movies that take place in the woods, and after we get through this, I'll go through some other ones that could have been better for Jay to pick, but he didn't. So I believe going around the horn here, Rob is first to pick.
Sure.
Rob, what is your film for the next category?
I'm going with The Blair Witch Project.
Genre defining when it came out. First real big found footage film.
I was scared shitless.
Truly terrifying. And
and I've got some stories about that one too, if that one wins.
If you take some space from it, now some people regard it as an awful film, some people regard it as a great film. It depends where you
It
fall.
started a whole genre of films.
Yeah, it's a worthy entry
When
for
you
sure.
when you take a step back and you rewatch it years later, it holds up. Like it's an effective.
I haven't seen it in a long time. I'd be interested.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind checking that out.
Jay, what is your pick?
The Gray.
Not horror. So I was joking about this.
Depends on your interpretation.
It's definitely a thriller.
And
for
what I
sure.
got from it was terror. Terror in the woods. That's what got to me.
And these are a group of men who are terrified.
Sure. It's a survival tale in the woods.
And then a man
trying
with a
to-
particular set of skills
Of
sets
course.
out to fight an endangered
Liam
species
Neeson, everybody.
and destroy it.
Vote for me.
So he fights an endangered species,
Yes.
destroys
Okay.
dozens of them.
Because they were going to destroy him.
Is this movie just Liam Neeson killing wolves the whole thing? Or?
Basically.
Okay.
At least towards the end.
Basically, it is. Yeah. And
Sounds scary.
I do love the post-credit scene for this movie. I think that the post-credit scene, which we'd talk about if it wins, it won't.
They set
But
up
if
for
it
some-
wins, and I
Cinematic universe for the gray.
for the great
cinematic.
but yeah, like I find this movie more tragic, but maybe that's because I love wolves so much. Like maybe that's why. But
I think so.
No, I do fondly remember this movie. I do like this movie. It's a very man's man movie. It's not a horror.
is.
It's a thriller, but it's not a horror movie. I would say it's a survival thriller.
See, I went with the terror in the woods. I didn't go with horror. I went with terror in the
Literally.
woods. Specific.
The feeling that
The
he
man is terrorized in the woods.
I would be terrified in the woods if I was in his place.
Here's my movie
Action,
cocktail season
adventure,
2
drama,
list.
thriller. You're looking at, yeah.
Terror in the woods. Parentheses. Horror movies
in the woods.
in the woods. So I did say horror movies. It does say it on the list, Jay. So anyone who votes for this is a vote for who's against the rules.
It's like Point Break.
Yeah, you could have said A Quiet Place. I would have went with that. No, too late. You already said The Gray.
No,
I want to see the gray now, so I hope it wins.
no, I'm on board with the gray. I stand
Mark,
behind myself.
what is your choice?
Cabin Fever. That's what I went with.
Cabin Fever. Eli Roth's
Yeah.
first big
Premiere.
picture. Yeah.
I don't know. I remember liking it. I haven't seen it in a while.
It is very gross,
It's
like
it's
body horror. Like
I
it
remember
makes
being
you
like
cringe.
a horror film with with comedy elements in there, but I remember it being kind of different. That it's not really like a slasher movie.
Pancakes.
Pancakes, yeah.
Pancakes. Do not have any pancakes, kid.
And Ryder Strong is in there.
Ryder Strong
Yeah,
is in there.
absolutely.
Lots of crazy shit in there. Yeah.
Boy Meets World, man. I was a big fan of that show. So watching Ryder Strong in this was kind of cool.
Jay, here's a bunch of movies you could have picked: The Evil Dead,
Shut the fuck up.
Last House on the Left, I Spit on Your Grave.
See, this is Dave's manipulation to trying to not have my movie win.
Yeah.
The Vivitch, Dead Snow,
Look, and these are movies that I do like.
Cabin
but
in the Woods.
Literally,
look,
it's in the title of the
all right.
movie.
First of all, Cabin in the Woods, I don't like the ending. So
Tucker and
that's
Dale
one.
versus Evil, Misery, and 90% of the Friday the 13th movies.
You could have picked anyone.
You could have picked anyone except for Jason Goes to Manhattan.
Yeah. Or when he's on the spaceship.
Jason X. Like, even that has a scene in the woods.
Virtual reality.
So you had
So you
plenty to
screwed
pick
up,
from.
Jay.
But
I'm sticking with it.
Well, you didn't say yours. What was your selection?
oh, my selection. It's 100% the winner.
I let you have this one, Dave, because I was going to say it, and then I was like, nah, Dave's going to pick this one.
His own category.
It's Sam Raimi's seminal horror film. It is Evil Dead 2.
He's going with the sequel.
Dead by Dawn. Dead by
Which is
Dawn.
sort of a comedy.
Dead by Dawn.
I mean,
But it's still a horror film.
yeah. Okay.
It's still horror. Cabin in the Woods is a comedy, but also a horror film.
Yeah. Okay.
Shaun of the Dead,
Fair
horror
enough.
movie, but also comedy. So there's a lot of those, and I think that this is the way that Sam Raimi wanted the first one to be, which is why this one is
Essentially
part
a remake.
remake
Yeah.
and a reboot, even a retelling of the original story, and then it continues the story. So I think this is the way Sam Raimi always wanted us to look at this franchise.
And you can't beat the gore in this one.
And you
Over the top.
cannot,
It's
dude.
gotta- yeah.
The practical effects are both charmingly bad
Yeah.
and wonderful at the same time.
Right.
Like some shots, some of the practical effects in this movie were so fantastic that it revolutionized the way Sam Raimi made films, but with the way other people
Yeah.
make films. Like there's so many horror
the
movies.
sheer
that are-
audacity of
Oh
some of
my
these
God.
effects.
Oh my God. And then when you
so-
get into the behind the scenes stuff of this
yeah.
film,
Oh, there's tons of that for this one. So
It
it'll be fun to
is-
talk
All the way
about.
now, then.
Well, it'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah.
and I also picked
I hope
it
Dave wins.
because Jay fucking hates this movie.
Oh,
yeah.
Jay hates
have you
this
seen
movie.
all of the Evil Dead?
He has not.
No.
This is the only one
That's
he
the only
saw.
one you've seen.
I was forced to watch it.
You
I
hate the first one too, probably.
I think he would
I
think
suffered through it. It probably took me 3 days to watch this thing.
yeah.
don't know.
So like,
What
if
about all
you-
that blood though? It's pretty cool, right?
but I mean, I love this series so much. I do love the original Evil Dead, but I like Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn better.
You prefer that one?
I prefer that one over the original one.
Yeah.
Army of Darkness is
That's its own-
it's its own thing. It's
More of an action comedy.
It's a fun romp. But I really like Ash versus the Evil Dead, which was on Stars for 3 seasons
still
too.
have to
Like
watch that.
I loved this whole series, and I love Bruce Campbell in this role, and it's when I think of like 80s horror, and I'm just like this is like the pillar that like stands up. It's this and like The Thing are like my thing, my jams.
Well,
I
your sister
love them.
Kim was the one that introduced you to Evil Dead. And this is hers.
And making
her favorite.
Bruce Campbell my hero for years. He's still my hero.
He's got the face.
He's got the chin.
He's got the jawline.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have picked Bubba Hotep and really threw everyone for a loop.
I don't know if there's any woods in that one, but
I think there's one point where the mummy's chasing him through the woods. Why not? Who cares?
Sure. If Jay can pick the gray, I mean,
it's a pretty loose category at that point, isn't it?
we're just teasing Jay.
Yeah.
But don't do it again.
We'll see what happens on the polls.
Yeah, yours is going to look like Inside Man did for me this week. So that's it. Those are the choices that we have. Rob has chose the Blair Witch Project. Jay has chose The Gray. Mark has chosen Cabin Fever, and I have chosen Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn. That's going to do it for Super Movie Bros this week. Don't forget to head over to forhangovers.com. Use the promo code SMBFish to get your discount for the Blowfish Hangover Cure, especially if you enjoyed our rum double shot cocktail from this past episode. You may need some Blowfish in the morning. We, of course, have other sponsors as well. We are also featured on the Podcoin app. Podcoin app is where you can listen to podcasts and also earn a little bit for your hard podcast listening. And you can also earn a little bit for charity as well while you listen. So please check out Super Movie Bros on the Podcoin app. It's available on iOS and Android. We are also part of a network. We are part of the Podfix Network. So please head over to podfixnetwork.com and you can check out our show as well as all the other amazing shows that are part of the Podfix Network. Rob used to be part of it. Now he doesn't have a show, so he's not. But his movie cocktails still get to get presented on there. You can go to the movie cocktails
way
tab
to rub that in
on
again.
that. But you live on is what I'm saying. You're technically still part of the Podfix Network. You're here.
You are.
You're here. If you would like to influence the show at all or listen to some of our extra episodes, even get some gifts from the Loot Chest, you can head over to patreon.com/supermoviebros. You can join our Patreon just for $1 a month. You can get a little bit more involved. Also, another thing that would really help us out, other than just Patreon, even more so, I would say, is if you listen to us on iTunes, please leave us a 5-star review. That is what helps us get seen. That is what helps us make those little top lists that everyone seems to love so much about podcasting. Getting ourselves on one of those lists would actually help the show grow immensely, and we need your reviews to do that. Mark, where can everybody listen to you and your show?
Cult Movie Cult. You can find us on wherever you find your podcasts. Actually, we're on Spotify now, iTunes, and Podbean. So check us out. We're actually about to start a brand new series about Ralph Bakshi and his movies.
Absolutely.
If you're into that kind of thing, you know.
And Rob, no one can find you anywhere anymore?
Yeah, no.
That's what I thought.
Just here.
Yeah, he's just hanging out.
Just hanging out.
Someday there'll be another.
Somewhere in North Jersey.
one day.
Yeah.
I see another podcast in your future.
I'm thinking about it. But all the ideas I seem to come up with have some obscure little thing, and I'm like, I already did one that had an obscure audience, and
But that's
didn't
good. You got to
work,
find
so-
the niche.
Yeah, but the niche didn't work for me last time.
You went for a niche of a niche.
Yeah.
You went for
So,
nerds,
yeah.
which is a niche, and then
Nerds
you went
of a
for like
super nerd,
yeah. Then you went to a super nerd niche.
You know, one day down the line, I've got some ideas still.
So that's going to do it for Super Movie Bros tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Have an excellent night. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.